Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root, from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL Wire site that covers, of course, your Arizona Cardinals. And this is episode 595, and it is the second of three shows that we're doing this week. Tuesday night, Seth and I recorded our review of what happened with the Lions, and now we start our preview shows. And I've got someone who it wasn't too long ago that he was on the show. In fact, this is like the third or fourth time in the last year, basically. Bryan Manning from Commanders Wire, who's the managing editor over there, as the Cardinals take on the Washington Commanders at home in Week 4. Bryan, thanks for coming on again. I really appreciate it. It's, this is becoming a regular thing now.
Yeah, Jess, thanks for having me on. It's always fun, and I like the direction these two teams are going in for once.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So tell me, I guess we can start with y'all's performance on Monday night against the Bengals and what we've seen so far. Tampa Bay took them to town in the opener, but then they played the Giants, and the Giants were the Giants. But 2 games, no punts, no turnovers, lots of scoring, 8 field goals, 4 touchdowns, and 3 kneel downs. That's really good. What has happened in this short amount of time for this Washington Commanders team?
Well, 2 words would be easy, and I think you know where I'm going with this, Jayden Daniels. But then this somebody you know pretty well is Cliff Kingsbury, and I think he's in his element doing this instead of being a head coach because he's focused completely on the quarterback, designing plays, and that was the best called game for Washington since Jay Gruden and Sean McVay were on the sidelines years ago. I mean, that was a fun game. It was balanced. This is his 3rd game at quarterback, and Kingsbury was trusting him completely. It was deep shots. It was the screen stuff that you're used to. It was the intermediate passing game. They were going for it on 4th down on the road on a Monday night. How often do you trust a rookie quarterback to go on the road on Monday night and go for it on 4th down, up 1 possession in the 4th quarter with 3 minutes left? You just don't. It's the other night was one of the wildest games, and I don't know how long. I mean, the final score, the Washington should have blown that game out if they had a competent defense, but they don't have a competent defense. It's the worst defense in the league still. But man, this offense is going to be fun.
So that brings me to the other point. So the offense looks good, especially the last 2 games. You got the growth. You had all field goals. Austin Seaver hitting 7 field goals in a game against the Giants. You've got the Jayden Daniels dominant performance on Monday night. So the offense seems to be there. Are you on? I know it's especially with the way that the Commanders have gone. The Cardinals, I think any positivity feels great, but is there any taking a step back because the Giants are still the Giants, and this Bengal team kind of looks like a mess right now? Is there any taking a step back just to I know you're going to enjoy it because wins are wins, and especially when you're in year 1 of a project and a kind of a rebuild or reformation or a change in coaching staff, year 1, any success feels great. But are you still hesitant to take that step up in expectations?
Absolutely. I would expect what I did like this week was they flew immediately to Arizona. They're immediately moving on to prepare for Arizona. They enjoyed it Monday night. It was back to work on Tuesday. But yeah, I mean, this team, the talent disparity between them and most NFL teams is great. Ron Rivera did a hideous job of drafting. I mean, I can't even get. That's a whole nother podcast. But they lack talent in so many places. You you watch the other night, you can blame the coaches defensively for things, but I mean that secondary right now was just bad. They don't have one corner who could start for anybody else in the league. I mean, Mikey Sanders still is a rookie. He's a slot. He's going to be really good, but he's a rookie. And you got Emmanuel Forbes who should be able to play next week against the Cardinals. But I mean, I don't think Commanders fans probably would rather see an undrafted free agent out there than Forbes. But
Man,
yeah, but no. Monday night was a wonderful time, and it gives you hope for the future. But if anybody has any sense about it, they're not looking at this team going, this is a Super Bowl contender. However, could this team contend for the NFC East? Why not? The Eagles and Cowboys aren't that good.
no, Giants are awful. Giants are terrible. Who knows what the Cowboys are?
Yeah.
And the Eagles also. They are one little piece of drama away from falling apart.
And they have an idiot. The Eagles have an idiot at coach. He's a cheerleader. He's an idiot. I mean, I think you and I talked about this last year, Jess. His coordinators were his stars. Gannon and Steichen that went to Indianapolis. They were the stars. And Sirianni's an idiot. He's a bumbling fool, and I enjoy seeing his downfall. So, but that's not the point. But no, I think that Jalen Hurts is a very limited quarterback, phenomenal athlete. But the Eagles are loaded with talent. Let's not. I mean, they have. I mean, the talent disparity between them and Washington is huge, but they're like you just said. They're one controversy, one injury, one piece of drama, one issue with Sirianni from falling apart. I mean, you saw it second half of last year, and but in the Giants, I mean, Malik Neighbors is something else.
Yes, he is.
But that Giants.
Okay, imagine if they'd kept Saquon with that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean,
they still have Daniel Jones, and with Daniel Jones, you're just like, they keep going with him. They keep believing that he's good and he's okay, but like I think only with the Giants they would keep going with that.
Yeah, it's like you pay him and then you compound the mistake. But and part of me feels bad for Jones because I've never seen. I see so many of these other quarterbacks that get a pass that Jones doesn't seem to get because I've being covering Washington for so long, I've seen Daniel Jones have his best performances against Washington. Outside of 2 weeks ago. He was okay against Washington 2 weeks ago, but he's been really good. So I've seen the good of Daniel Jones, and there's something there. He's not a guy I would have paid $40 million for, obviously, but it's just a weird division, and the Cowboys can't play defense. I just love watching those teams implode. I know Dan.
You're not gonna. I won't feel bad for that. I remember the NFC East days, so I still don't feel warm and fuzzy toward any NFC East team.
Yeah,
and that was over 22 years ago when they were playing the same division.
Hard to believe, isn't it? I mean,
that's wild. It's wild. It just means I'm old. It just means I'm old.
I remember those days too. Yeah.
Oh, like I remember the Mark Rippon Super Bowl. I remember that.
Oh yeah, those were good moments. I'm going to tell you. If you were a kid if you were an '80s kid or even a '90s kid, but mostly an '80s kid, and you grew up as a Washington fan, you're like, life can't get any better than this.
Well, and the Cardinals took Joe Bugle because Joe Bugle was the hottest things, in the NFL. And then they were terrible.
He wasn't. I love Hughes, but he wasn't cut out to be a head coach. Love the man, best offensive line coach ever. Argued.
Oh yeah.
But he wasn't cut out for that, and But Washington fans were spoiled in those days, and reality. See, that's what a night like Monday night is so important to fans because a lot of those didn't get to experience those days, so they've only seen the bad. They've only seen that RG3 year of 2012, which was more of a smoke and mirrors type year, as we've learned. I think Jayden Daniels is sustainable. Robert Griffin wasn't, and the mentality of both players is different. Robert Griffin's all about me. Jayden Daniels is a worker, a teammate. He's everything that you want a young quarterback to be and more. But
do you worry about his running style? Like the one thing, I watched him. I watched him at Arizona State. I've been a season ticket holder in Arizona State since 2007. So I watched every game that Jayden Daniels had, and when his freshman year, I was super excited about him. And then that was a mess because he never got really better until he got to LSU. And the one thing about his game is he gives off vibes of he's going to have an RG3 ending because he challenges defenders he shouldn't. Like in the NFL, he can't do that. He can't do that. Are you worried about that, or you don't want him to learn too late, right? Because like a guy built like that has to get down and get out of bounds. He can't take on defenders like he did in college.
No, you're 100% right, and we've already seen it here through 3 weeks. He took a brutal shot to the ribs against the Giants. He missed one play. He was back, but I mean, you just worry about it. See, he's a different type of runner than Griffin, where Griffin was a straight line speed guy. Jayden's not only fast, but he's got some moves to him. But the one thing is they have in common is neither one slides. And Jayden even joked about it. I don't know that he joked about it. He was just honest when he said, "No, I've never slid." But
he doesn't like to. They said it on the broadcast the other night. He doesn't like to. He'd rather dive and roll.
Yeah, well, I was encouraged that he did slide the other night once he got that first down. But when you're trained to get that extra yard every time, and I love that about him. I love that mentality. But you got to play for the next play, not this play all the time. Sometimes getting that fourth down is not worth what it could cost. Yeah, so it is definitely a concern, and that concern is not going to go away until he can prove over a long period of time that he can get down and, like those old saying is, live to play another play.
Aside from Jayden Daniels, so what are you guys getting from the run game? Obviously, got Terry McLaurin, fantastic. But what else is working offensively? And then what is the problem defensively? Is there anything that they do well defensively? But let's talk about the rest of the offense. Austin Eckler, we know he's going to be out this week. But you got Robinson, you got Terry McLaurin. What are the weapons? How good do you feel about the weapons on offense?
They're not where they need to be. But there's some young pieces here. There's outside of Terry McLaurin, the receivers, you got Noah Brown, who was signed just before camp. Noah's already been good. But you got Luke McCaffrey, who's a rookie. We started to see what Luke could do the other night. He had 3 huge catches. Ben Sennett's a 2nd-round pick. He's going to be a good player too. He has yet to get really involved in the passing game, but 1-year-old guy, Zach Ertz, through 3 games has been huge. I mean, Zach Ertz can't run anymore, really, but he knows how to get open.
Yes, I joked last year before he got hurt that he was on pace to have 100-catch, 600-yard season.
That's right. Well, the thing about Jayden Daniels is that's a player he clearly trusts.
And Cliff loves him. Cliff loves Zach Ertz.
Yeah. And you can see it. And if Ertz, I think Washington would take a 6 yards per catch year out of Ertz if he catches 70 passes, because it's more about being that check down option for Daniels and being in that short intermediate game. But you mentioned Eckler. That's a huge loss for Sunday. I don't think it can be overstated, because what he's done through 3 weeks, it's not the amount of touches, it's what he does every time he touches the ball. Not only is he an impact as a runner and a receiver, he has a kickoff return for a touchdown that was called back by a stupid holding penalty in week 2 against the Giants. And then he had a 62-yard kickoff return Monday night that set up a touchdown. So Eckler's a big loss. Brian Robinson's a phenomenal player, though. And Brian Robinson's actually very underrated as a receiver. Where the two were splitting carries and even on the field together, I don't think you're going to see a lot of split carries. You'll see a lot of, I'd say Robinson gets 80% of the snaps, and you'll see some Jerry McNichols in there, like in pass protection maybe, but it's going to be the Brian Robinson show on Sunday. Which leads me to ask you a question, Jess. What's the strength of the Cardinals defense?
Thus far, well, they're better against the pass than we expected. So they haven't been killed by any receivers yet. Cooper Kupp he got hurt, but They didn't get like Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't go off against them. Their run defense has been really, really inconsistent. They couldn't do much against James Cook. They completely shut down Kyron Williams, but they had no answer for either Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery against the Lions. And so it's hit or miss. And plus they lost Justin Jones for the rest of the season. So they lost D lineman. So the run, so they can sell out against the run in part. Well, at least against the Rams, they were able to do it because they had a backup left tackle, in fact, third string left tackle. And so between scoring offense, scoring quickly, and then selling out against the run early, they've been better against the pass than expected. They don't have a great pass rush. I mean, they are top 10 in the league in sacks, but that's because they had 5 sacks against the Rams, and that was also against the third string left tackle. But the Cardinals against the pass have been better than expected because they were absolutely just torched through the air. Actually, they were torched through the air, on the ground, and through 3 games, they've proven to be okay. And the fact that they shut out Detroit in the second half of that game was promising. And so I don't know what to think defensively yet, but it's going to be interesting to see.
I remember back when our teams met in week 1 last year. Well, it was an ugly game, but I mean, just think about where the season ended up going for both franchises. But I remember saying about that game was, man, Gannon's going to be good because that defense didn't have a lot of talent outside of Baker, but you just saw him competing on every snap. So if they get players on that D, they're going to be really good.
They do have those. So Kaiser White and Mac Wilson have been fantastic in the middle of the field. Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson are great. Their cornerbacks haven't been bad. And, last year, cornerback play was terrible. So, and that's kind of how I felt about this defense. As long as the offense is what we expect it to be and the defense is not terrible, they're going to be a competitive team. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the Washington defense?
Let me start with the strengths. Next. No, seriously. The strengths should be the interior duo of Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. They've not been good. Payne's been better than Allen. I don't know what's going on with Allen right now, and this is a new defense, so it's hard to make grand proclamations about when players are adjusting to a new scheme. But it's defensive tackle. It's not quarterback. I mean, you line up the man in front of you and you beat them, and they've not been doing it. I mean, I expected Washington to finish bottom 3 in the NFL against the pass. I would have expected them to be middle of their pack against the run. They've been horrible. Cincinnati averaged 6 yards a carry the other night. They were popping off long runs. Cincinnati's not a good running team, and that's a concern moving forward. The rookie Johnny Newton played more snaps in his 3rd game. He's gonna be poised to take over one of those spots soon, and I would say before the end of the year, you could make the argument he'll be Washington's best defensive tackle. Even though Daron Payne's not been bad, Daron Payne's just got to finish plays. But that's where the strengths should be. You got Bobby Wagner, who's been fun to watch. I mean, I've been wanting see Bobby Wagner there for years, but even though he's an older, what a great player. And it's just what
he makes all the plays. They're just not at the line of scrimmage anymore.
Yeah, right. Age catches up to anybody. And, when you watched a Ron Rivera defense, Jack Del Rio for years, with David Mayo in the middle and guys like that, you can appreciate a 34-year-old Bobby Wagner in the middle of the field because it's just so much better. But
how's Frankie Louvu been?
He hasn't made an impact yet, I wouldn't say, but he's had plays here and there. But I think once he gets more acclimated, he'll be fine. But right now, I've not seen him use him as a pass rusher, which he's really good as a pass rusher with the Panthers. I would expect more of that as the season wears on because they don't have a defensive end who can just line you up and get you a sack when you need it. I mean, to be honest, Chase Young and Montez Sweat couldn't do it. I mean, all the hype they had, but I'm not. So don't get that's another thing right there. But they got a rookie named Javonte Jean-Baptiste, 7th round pick out of Notre Dame. They love
I
him.
saw he got the sack the other night.
He had a good training camp. He's fun to watch. He's going to be a starter before the end of the year, I believe. Doris Armstrong, brought up from the Cowboys, hasn't done anything yet. And the secondary, Quan Martin is the best player in the secondary. The second year from Illinois, he can play slot, he can play outside, he can play free safety. He's Washington safety. He's the best guy in the secondary, but he's still learning. So and you got a secondary that's still learning, and then you mix with a bunch of guys who aren't very good. It's a bad mix. But I do think with Dan Quinn as a coach, the defense will get better as the season goes on. There's just not a lot of talent there that can get them in the upper half. I mean, they're going to be lucky to finish 22nd defensively, but I do think they'll get better as the year goes on. At least that's what you hope to see.
Coming up next on the Rise Up Series podcast, Mr. Cardinals talking about. Let's move on to the actual matchups. What will Washington want to do against Arizona? What are the matchups that are going to matter most? That's coming up next on Rise Up Series Red. Back on the Rise Up Series podcast, Mr. Cardinals talking the web, talking to Bryan Manning from Commanders Wire. Our sister site to Cards Wire is the Cardinals and Commanders play at State Farm Stadium, 4:05 p.m. Eastern, 1:05 p.m. locally. Something interesting to note that historically, the Washington team has dominating the series, but that's because they were a good football team for a long time. And even still over the last 10 meetings. So they played a gazillion times. In the last 22 years, they've only played 10 times, and Washington has won 7 of those 10 times. However, Kyler Murray in his one game that he's played again, because last year, obviously, it was Josh Dobbs who started. Josh Dobbs versus Sam Howell. What a terrible game that was. But in the one game Kyler Murray has played, it was a win in 2020, 30-15 win back then. What do we expect to see to be the game plan? How do you see the Commanders matching up with Arizona? I get the feeling that this could be a track meet, is how this could be, because like you said, the run game, the defense has not been stopped at the run game. The Cardinals, they do run the ball well. Now, they didn't do it against Detroit, but Detroit stops literally every running back in the NFL. If they are able to run the ball a little bit, that offense will be humming. But if Jayden Daniels is in his element again, and I know that Cliff, I get a feeling that Cliff is going to be motivated just like last week after Cam Taylor-Britt referred to that offense as that college offense.
What a stupid thing to say.
And the thing is, I don't know what people have been watching. If you watched back 2019, 2020, when people were bashing the Kingsbury offense, they would come out and score points on teams. I don't understand what they're like. Come on, stop that. That's uninformed.
And doesn't every team have an element of the college offense now? I mean, most teams do. They have something there. I mean, just a dumb thing to say. I mean, what was even funnier is he doubled down on his comments after the game. I mean, I guess you got to appreciate that that he stood by what he said. But he said he could eat his words, but he wasn't going to take them back.
Yeah. So that college offense, what did that do to y'all's defense?
Yeah.
But I see. Yeah, this could be a track meet of a game. I think.
I think you're going to see both quarterbacks rush for 60 or 70 yards. And they're gonna. I think both teams are gonna rush for over 100 yards, and I do think there'll be several big plays in the passing game. I don't know how Washington could stop Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know what your early impressions are of him. I just know that Washington doesn't have anybody that can cover him, and I think that's going to be a big deal. But I'm with you. I could see something like 34-27, 34-31, something like that kind of game. I think that's what we're heading toward on Sunday, which is fun. Which is fun for a viewer.
It'll be fun. Yes, it'll be fun. It'll be worrisome for both of us as we pay attention to the game, I'm sure. So let's talk about the matchup. So you worry about the Marvin Harrison matchup. Who do you think is going to line up against him primarily?
I think it'll be Benjamin St. Juste, fourth-year corner out of Minnesota. He's 6'3". St. Juste is if you ever watch him, he's always there, but he gets beat a lot. But the guy is a competitor. He's physical. He's not a speedy guy, but he's very physical, and he's like I said, he's always around the ball. He just doesn't make any plays on the ball.
It reminds me of Marco Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, because he was like in his first couple of years, he was like right there, and he gave up a lot of plays. He was like half inch and making plays all the time.
That's
Never made.
same,
And then he was terrible.
Literally the same situation here. I think the coaching staff likes the competitiveness there, and he's not afraid. I mean, he gets beat. Like Emmanuel Forbes will get beat, and he has no confidence. I mean, he gets beat, and you'll see him on the sideline about in tears. Where St. Jude's will get beat, he's right back in your face, and I appreciate that as a watch, and he's the competitive fire and getting back in there. But Marvin Harrison, that's a matchup to watch. And in Kyler Murray, I think it's going to go. Your two best fantasy quarterbacks in Week 4 will be in this game.
Oh, it's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. So, how important is the run game for Washington offensively to get things going?
It's huge because ideally you would prefer to keep Daniels out of dropping back 35 to 40 times a game because your offensive line has pass protected pretty well, but it's not a strength. So you want Brian Robinson to get 20 touches. What you'd want is Eckler and Robinson to get 15 touches apiece. Eckler's not available, so you should get a heavy dose of Robinson. They're going to stick with the run, and Daniels will sneak some carries in there. They'll call a few, and then he'll do some scrambling, but it is a huge element to the team. And the other night they didn't have huge rushing numbers, but it was a big part of the game because it helped set up the pass. And when they needed a few yards, Eckler or Daniels got it. Brian Robinson didn't have his best game, but he was phenomenal against the Giants. He didn't have his best game Monday night, but didn't really need to. So
right,
the running game is a big deal for Washington, and I think you'll see them come out focused on it early in the game.
What does the tackle situation look like for Washington? What level of play you're getting from them?
Offensive tackles?
Yes.
At right tackle, you got Andrew Wiley, came over from Kansas City a year ago. He's not very good. I do think he's been better this year, and he's athletic. He's athletic, and when they run the ball, he can get out with Sam Cosmi. They're a good pair on that, but he's not a great pass blocker. Anybody with a pulse on that side is going to get past him. On the left side, you got Cornelius Lucas, who's ageless, starting, and Brandon Coleman, the rookie, is rotating in. Every week he gets 5-10 more snaps. By the midway, he'll be starting at left tackle. But they've done a good job. The two left tackles have done a good job. Coleman is the third-round rookie that they hope is the answer there. Nobody believes he's going to be Trent Williams, but they're not. You don't have to be Trent Williams to be a good left tackle. Trent Williams is just out of this world, but they've actually done pretty good, and the interior has been the strength. And they remodeled the interior this year. They signed a new left guard who was the key block on that touchdown run by Eckler the other night. The center Biotish from
Allegretti, right?
Yeah, Allegretti. The Biotish was just a huge signing. It's very underrated. And then at right guard, Cosmi should be a Pro Bowler this year. So it's better than it was last year when you saw us in Week 1. It's better than that, but it's a work in progress.
Good. So I'm going to be interested to see because the Cardinals edge guys are no one special. Dennis Gardeck, he is undersized, but he gets sacks in bunches. He had 3 against the Rams, but he's 6'2" and 235 pounds. Built small.
Sounds like Dante Fowler a little bit.
Yeah. But you got Zaven Collins on one side who's developing a little bit of pass rush skill, but he's really good against the run. So it's going to be interesting in how to see how that goes. The defensive line might be depleted a little bit for the Cardinals. Justin Jones out. They signed Naquan Jones. He's just a guy. Kairos Tonga, one of their nose tackles, also banged up. So it'll be interesting to see because their rookie Darius Robinson, he's going to miss this. He's got one more week to miss on injured reserve. So we'll kind of see from there. Other than that,
he's the Missouri rookie, right?
Yeah. I can't wait to see him. He'll be fun. He'll be
There was a
fun.
lot of hype about him pre-draft. I remember Washington
Yeah.
brought him for a visit.
Yeah. I'm guessing that the Cardinals don't really have their corners follow. So where does McLaurin, or does he move around a lot? Does Cliff have him line up left side, like, because that's what he tends to do with his ex.
I know when I studied Kingsbury coming into the year, one of the complaints was they don't use a lot of motion, and the number one receiver stays in the same spot. But McLaurin has played some slot this year, limited, so he has moved around some. Cliff's apparently heard some of that, maybe, but no, McLaurin will line up some all over the place, and that's just a good way to use him because McLaurin's not one of those guys who gets like Jamar Chase separation or anything, but he gets open, and he's just I think he's still the most underappreciated player in the league because he's put up 1,000 yards. He missed 81 yards from doing it as a rookie, and you've seen the quarterbacks he's played with. I mean, this is a guy who could have had 12, 13, 1,400 yards a year.
Yes.
He had competent quarterback play. So even if you're not a Washington fan, how can anyone not appreciate? Like, I see all these other corners like talking trash about Terry McLaurin, saying I shut McLaurin down. No, you didn't. Taylor Heineke shut him down, or you know,
Sam will throw 3 picks or got sacked 5 times. Or
let's be honest, who shut him down? The corners did. Like Trayvon Diggs, I remember one time would post up that he shut him down. When there's a highlight out there where Trayvon Diggs was talking trash to McLaurin, he burns him for a long touchdown and he tucks his head in the sand and walks off. But you'll only hear about from the Dallas fans about how he shuts him down when he hasn't really shut him down. They don't throw to him, so they throw very bad.
I will say this about Cliff. So when it was really kind of picked apart was in 2020. But that was Hopkins' first year in the system in an offseason where there was almost no offseason. And so I am 100% certain now that it makes it a lot, because if you have a guy that can beat your one-on-one on the boundary, if you have an X guy, why wouldn't you line him up there and to win on the outside? If he can do that consistently. But part of that was simply it was a short offseason. There was little time on task in the offseason, getting the offseason reps. It was Hopkins' first year in the system, and so they just used him out there. And they did have him do a little bit more, but that offense isn't a motion-based offense. It is a space-based offense. And you'll probably find out that as the talent depletes with injuries, that the offense will be less and less successful because it depends on players. It's schemed to get players in space and to have those players do things with it is one of the and that's not a bad thing. I think even guys around the league, like as much criticism as Cliff has gotten, guys in the NFL still see him as an offensive genius. And that is something. Like you get a reputation and you see it, and when he draws things up, players are like, yeah, that's cool. Receivers want to play for him. And his run game scheme is really underrated. The Cardinals ran the ball really well when he was here. Even though they had really bad offensive line play, they still ran the ball well. And having a mobile quarterback definitely helps that. But I would imagine you're going to see, if he doesn't line up mostly on the left side, that we'll see Sean Murphy Bunting going up against him on the Cardinals side. Zach Ertz against those linebackers and safeties. They know Ertz quite well. So those are going to be some important matchups. It's going to be interesting to see because Trey McBride might miss this game. He's in concussion protocol. We'll see how that goes. But if he doesn't play, then it'll be Elijah Higgins, who is not Trey McBride, but is still he's very much a very good pass catcher. He played receiver in college when he was at Oregon. So he converted to the position last year coming out of college and made some plays late in the game. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm keys in terms of this. If the Cardinals if James Conner can run the ball, I don't know how that defense will stop the Cardinals. But I have concerns about whether the Cardinals will be able to slow the Washington offense too. So Yeah, that's going to be fun. So let's go on to the next segment. Coming up with some Rise of Secret podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. Let's go for predictions and picks. That's coming next on Rise of Secret. We're back on the Rise of Secret podcast, best our Cardinals talk on the web, talking to Bryan Manning from Commanders Wire. Now we're on the segment we want to make picks and predictions. How do you see this game playing out? I think we both get the vibe it's going to be a track meet, right? That there's going to be a lot of points, and maybe it's going to come down to who takes better care of the football. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any turnover in a game like this is going to be critical to the outcome. One turnover could determine the game one way or the other.
I've got the Cardinals. I mean, right now it shows a 3.5 point spread. It was interesting because Monday before y'all played, it was as high as 5.5, and then it moved down 2 points after their win. So that game did make a difference. So it's a 3.5 point. I think I have this going 34-30 Cardinals. How do you think it will go?
I can completely back that up. There's a part of me that wants to say Washington's going to come on the road, win 3 in a row, but there's also a part of me that says don't get too excited yet, because you're going to be disappointed. Jayden's going to be. I think Jayden's going to be a fantastic player for a long time. I'm already sold on that, but he can't play like that every game. It's not, nobody can do that. So, I'm going to say the Cardinals by field goal, maybe 27-24. That's
Okay.
kind of where I'm leading. I think Cardinals are going to win. It's going to be close, and I think Washington has its first turnover, and I think Washington will have to punt a couple times this week too.
Yeah. That's. I hope they do. I do. So they've got the passing for in terms of props. They've got Jayden Daniels 1.5 touchdown passes, plus 145 for the over, minus 190 for the under. Do you think he has 2 or more touchdown passes or less than that?
Eckler being out concerns me, but I think he gets 2 touchdown passes, and I think he gets McLaurin on one. I think he hits Zach Ertz on one.
Ooh. So let me. I wonder if they have any. I don't think they have any time touchdowns. They don't have any touchdowns yet, but they've got some props. Brian Robinson, 62.5 yards, over or under in terms of rushing yards?
Over.
Okay. James Conner, 68.5.
Over.
Jayden Daniels, 47.5.
I think he hits about 50 yards.
Okay. Kyler, 34.5.
Kyler's definitely over. Kyler's going to
Okay.
get 50 or 60 yards as well.
What about so the receiving yards? We don't have the only receiving. Oh my gosh, that's not much. It's just the Washington guys. 55.5. Terry McLaurin. That seems like an easy bet, right?
Yeah, if you'd have watched the first 2 games, you'd probably say that's probably stretching it, but that wasn't his fault. 55.5 after the game he had, the chemistry that they're developing, he gets over.
What about Zach Ertz, 28.5 yards?
36.
That's supposed to feel like kind of easy bets. And interesting, because McLaurin right now is his reception 4.5, and you can get plus 110 on over that. My guess he'll have 5 receptions, and
Yeah, I think you see 4 or 5 receptions.
And then Ertz is over 3.5 is plus 135. So I also like the over on that.
You got to take the over on that because
Zach
Zach
will
will
eat
eat
money.
Those
plus odds. That's wild.
That's easy. I think that's easy money right there. The Ertz.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let me see anything. Kicking props. Over 1.5 or so. Does he hit 2 or more field goals? Because you can get even money on that plus 100.
I'm gonna say yeah. I'm gonna say he hits 2 field goals, not 7, but 2.
Not 7. Yeah, but yeah, two is not a bad way to go. I'm excited about this game. I mean, I think probably both teams look at this game as a winnable game. This was the one in the early schedule because if the Cardinals win this at 2-2, they're and even Washington being 2-2 after these two games, that
In good shape.
feels
You're still in good shape.
you still feel really good now. Like if Washington wins this game, how does that change perspective for the season if they start out 3-1? Because that's it's not nothing when you start 3-1. Like except when the Cardinals in 2012 started out 4-0 and then won one more game, but that was 2012. I remember that season, the first year I was in the stadium as media that year, but like you go start 3-1, do you start ratcheting up expectations just a little bit in terms of competitiveness and maybe possibility for the postseason?
Well, here's the deal with Washington. They look at this game and they see they're on the road again next week. They have 3 straight road games. I mean, sometimes actually it's 3 out of 4 road games. They had the home against the Giants. They're on the road Tampa Bay, but they got the Browns. They got the Browns and the Ravens the next 2 weeks. I know all the Deshaun
Browns
Watson
very good.
Yeah, the Browns can play some pretty good defense. So those are tough games. So the Washington probably looks at this game as there's no must-win game in Week 4, but Washington probably looks at this game as like we need to get one here because we got 2 tough ones coming up before we see Carolina. And Carolina looks different now with Andy Dalton, even though I think Carolina's still the worst team in football. I mean,
that was smoke and mirrors. That was just the Andy Dalton effect. We've seen Andy Dalton play. It ain't pretty. Honestly, if he can somehow start in December, there's this really fun stat. The Cardinals, like before last year, they played. Andy Dalton started against them for 4 different teams, and the Cardinals beat him every single time. So this would make 5 times in 6 years facing Andy Dalton, each for a different team. Come on, let's face Andy Dalton. Good dude, but come on, the guy. That's so funny how quickly he went from good starter to washed.
And he's the guy everybody wants as a backup. Everybody wants him as a backup for a reason.
Yeah. He's pretty solid. But no, he's not good. Let's be honest. The Raiders, they're no good. I don't know. Yeah. It just didn't make any sense how they beat the Ravens and then lose to the Panthers. How do you do that? But then at the same time, Tampa Bay did it. Tampa Bay put the beat down on the Commanders, then beat the Lions, and then what in the I don't understand the NFL.
The Raiders are stuck where Washington was stuck for years. That's like they with Antonio Pierce, they felt like they had to promote him, and I don't think it was a good idea. And I'm not saying I don't think he could be a good coach in the future. I just don't think that was the right move.
I just don't think they have a good enough roster. I'm like, come on, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, they're not going to win games with them.
Yeah. Gardner is an A+ backup. That's what he is.
He's so fun. He is Ryan Fitzpatrick all over again.
Yeah, and he'll have a long career, but they should be taking Devontae Adams and sell him to the highest bidder right now, but before he gets any older and shows they should sell him to the highest bidder because they're going to be in the quarterback market next year in the draft. I think they're going to get a top 5 pick, but that's just a weird team, and no, Carolina shouldn't get excited about beating the Raiders.
I mean, honestly, they should get excited about beating anybody. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah. No, it feels good for Washington to pass the mantle of having the worst owner. Thank you, David Tepper.
All right, man. Hey, Bryan, thank you so much for your time. We'll wrap up this edition of the Rise This Year podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. That's Bryan Manning for Commanders Wire. You can definitely hit up Commanders Wire this week, especially so you can keep up with what they're doing, obviously in Cards, where we're going to keep up with some of that. But up to date, all sorts of content over Commanders Wire. Bryan, thank you so much for being on again. We're hoping. I know we're both hoping different outcomes, but it's good to see 2 teams that have been not good on the rise.
Well, Jess, first of all, Jess, thanks for having me on again. It's always fun. It is fun to see that these two teams are seemingly headed in the right direction, and forget where they're headed. This is going to be a fun game.
Oh yeah, I cannot wait. I love watching points be scored. It's especially when you can see these young quarterbacks, if they can go out and have games, and you're like, yeah, let's get some fantasy owners excited, because I don't play fantasy because no, that's too much. I can't do it. It's too much roster to handle. Not with them doing everything. But man, thanks for coming on. That'll wrap up this edition of the show. Seth and I will be back tomorrow to do our preview. It's Bryan Manning. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms, so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, rise up, see red.